Hi, welcome to another devlog for my indie game, Legend 64. It's a third-person adventure game with an N64-inspired visual style, where you encounter ghosts and undead creatures. The castle is a dangerous place and hides many secrets. It is ill-advised that you leave your room and venture out to explore the castle at night. The way you came in during the day won't be the same if you decide to leave your room to explore in the dark. You may not be able to find your way back to the safety of your chambers if you do. The castle hallways can lead to many different locations, but can be quite treacherous to navigate. There is an oppressive darkness pressing in at you from every direction, and I hope it will add to the level of unease as you explore. While it might seem the same as it does during the day at first, as the player you will soon realise that things have changed during the night. It's similar to how you might feel when you explore your own house if you get up in the middle of the night. You may know the layout, but it's still somehow unfamiliar in an unsettling way. To accomplish this feeling, I've been experimenting with procedural generation. My original plan was to split the castle hallway into chunks and have each chunk randomly load in at a fixed distance away from the player. Depending on the player's position, it will spawn a new set of tiles in front of them, while simultaneously destroying the tiles behind the player. This means that the layout will never be the same, and if you decide to backtrack, it will be completely different from the way you came. In order for this to work properly, I had to create a series of room tiles that could easily connect with each other, making sure to use dimensions that would snap along the grid in Blender. This way, when a tile spawns, it will align along the grid perfectly, preventing any gaps or intersecting geometry. The textures had to tile cohesively as well, so I needed to be careful in what orientation the tiles spawn. For example, I could not simply copy this door piece and rotate it 180 degrees because the pattern on the floor textures would not align and there would be an obvious seam where the textures meet. This meant I had to create multiple tiles of the same type at different orientations so that they could align accordingly. This could have very easily become an overcomplicated mess, so in order to keep track of everything, I added arrows floating above each chunk to help me know which tile I could use next. What you're looking at right now is my real-time procedural generation system for the hallway. Whenever I hit play, the room tiles will spawn in a random pattern each time. This is a bird's eye view, but I can change perspective so you can see what's happening inside. I'm proud to say that I created this procedural generation system from scratch, although I'm less proud to admit that it doesn't actually work. At least not entirely. I'll explain why. This system relies heavily on the player distance to tell the chunks when to spawn and when to be destroyed. This works fine for a straight hallway, as the player will always be a fixed distance away from the tile spawning and the tile being destroyed. However, things get complicated when corners and intersections are implemented, because the player distance isn't linear, it's radial. Consequently, tiles will spawn in every direction from the player, regardless of which way the player moves. This also means a tile won't be destroyed when the player is still close to the preceding tile. This is especially problematic if the layout doubles back on itself, which will result in tiles colliding into each other, creating dead ends. To help combat this issue, I introduced a limit to the amount of tiles that can be displayed on screen at one time. However, this still leaves me with the problem of the tiles spawning regardless of if the player is heading in that direction. I've been racking my brain for a solution to this, and I've tried as many workarounds that I can think of, including removing the player distance requirement altogether, but alas, it was to no avail. I don't consider myself a programmer by any means, and this system may be too complicated for someone of my current skill level to implement. In any case, I'm shelving this approach for the time being. If you have any thoughts or ideas that might get this thing to work, please let me know in the comments. This has been driving me crazy. So, instead of using procedural generation for the hallway layout, I've opted to use a set of pre-designed layouts that will load in at random whenever the player enters the area. This gives me more control over the level design. However, I still wanted to incorporate the dreamlike feeling of having elements that change, so what I did was have set points within the map that can spawn a different piece of furniture or a different door. These doors can lead to a different type of room when you enter, so in this way, where you need to go in each layout is never truly the same. Even though there is a set amount of layouts that I have designed and can be loaded in, the objects within these layouts are procedurally generated and will always be different. There are several door types that will load in each layout. Some will lead to areas you need to reach in order to progress. Others will lead to, well, let's say, surprises. I've given each door a colour for demonstration purposes, but in the final game, they will all look the same, so the risk is yours if you decide to explore at night. The same system is applied to the various decorative objects like the lanterns and pots. I've drawn inspiration for the design of the hallway from some of my favourite pieces of media, like Spirited Away and Luigi's Mansion. The spider webs are my own take on the webs from the Skulltula house in Ocarina of Time, and the stone effigies on the wall are inspired by some of the giant wall masks from Majora's Mask. To create the oppressive nighttime atmosphere, I've used a combination of baked-in distance-based fog and atmospheric fog. While I've been able to dip my toes into the programming side of Unreal Engine a lot more recently, I've spent way longer on this than I would have liked, mainly due to my lack of programming knowledge. But now I'm happy with my current workaround, and I'm excited to see how it's going to work in the game. I feel like I can finally put this area to rest for the time being and move on. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks as well to all of the support from my patrons, and an extra special thank you to these 64-bit legends for their continued support. LRC Napkin, Grayson Keys, Mario Tavaliri, Chumbledorf, Tyler Hughes, Oliver Honleyken, Yaya Damboos, Mason Stooksberry, Waro Duck, Illusion Kitsune, Sebastian, Melty Metroid, Warren McPeak, Paul Mayer Gorham, Chum, Ice Hot, Spooky Blue, Charles Tanner, Junk Goblin, Daniel H. Hernandez, Matt, Starkium, and the Power Hungry Fool. You guys keep me going and inspire me to keep working, even when I run into issues like these. So thank you so much.